Hello and a very warm welcome back to Morsels and Motors. This is the very first in what will be a series of videos about the restoration of this car. This is my 1977 model year Volvo 343. This car was actually built in September 1976, which makes it one of the earliest within the 77 model year. In this particular episode, I am going to show you why it needs a restoration and do a couple of the first little bits of that restoration. Before we get started, I wanted to let you know why this car is so special and why it deserves a bit of a restoration. Well, I have owned this car since 2013. I drove all the way to the Netherlands to go and get it, and the reason I did that is because I really wanted a 1977 model year car. The Volvo 340 was launched in 1976, and the very first 76 and 77 model years were totally unique. The 1978 model year, it completely changed, the interior changed, some of the trim changed, 79 even more changes, even the dash changed by that point. But I really wanted one of those very, very, very early cars that still had the very first original dashboard, the very first original seats, interior trim, door cards, chroming, hubcaps, everything from the 1977 model year is totally unique. So at some point in this car's previous life, before I bought it 9 years ago, it has had a respray at the very least and probably some work done to it. I mean, it is a 1970s Volvo, it is going to have had rust in the past, this isn't a new thing. But as you'll be able to tell when I show you around the car in a little bit, that restoration was perhaps either a very long time ago and it's starting to fail, or it wasn't done to the highest possible standards. Well, the main and obvious reason why this car needs some work done to it is rust. That classic arch enemy of cars that are old, and certainly ones that are made in the 1970s in the Netherlands. This car suffers from quite a bit of it. There's a little hole in the sill that I've discovered there, lovely jubbly. The rear, it's been patched up over the years, as you can see. There's obviously a little welding mark there where someone's welded in a new plate. And it's a similar story the other side. The very bottom of the front right hand side wing is really gone. I don't think I want to put my hand through that too much because most of it will come apart. The rest of the wing's actually in good condition. The sill on this side has also had some welding repairs done, that probably not to the highest of standards. So I think this car deserves a pair of new sills and a pair of new wings, and consequently it needs to be repainted. It also needs a new bonnet, but I've actually done that already and I'll show you that in a moment later on in the video. You can see there's quite a lot of bubbling happening in the paint in certain areas of the car because it hasn't probably been prepared properly when it was resprayed. As well as rust, we have a few other minor issues that need to be dealt with on the car that I just haven't got around to doing. One of them being this rear bumper. I don't know whether you can work out, is at a slightly funny angle because it's had a bit of a smack there, so it's kind of bent the metal a little bit and it's all kind of pointing downwards. Inside the car there are also a few other issues. The speedometer has decided to stop working. The fuel gauge, I'm not sure whether it works. The temperature gauge definitely doesn't work. The battery light does work. So the temperature gauge is the most problematic of all these, as well as the speedometer, because it's an old car and I don't want it to overheat, and I'd have no idea whether it is or not. So that is something that needs fixing. Whether it's an electrical issue on the dash or whether it's a sender unit, I'm not sure, but we'll get to that at some point. Also the heater fan, which is this control, no, it's not this control here, it doesn't work. So I think there's a bit of an electrical issue there that I need to sort out as well. In terms of other bits and pieces, there's some trim that are broken. So this trim piece here is broken. That identical other trim piece there is broken. Most of the things are fairly intact. So considering this is a 1977 build car where the quality was really quite appalling, it's actually in reasonable condition. So things like the air vent does sort of just about work. I wouldn't move it too much. So hopefully that gives you a sense of what the car is like and why it needs a bit of work and what sort of jobs need doing to it. Let's turn to the two little tasks that I've already started to do on this car. The first task is the upholstery. The material, as you'll see, has really badly faded and torn. It's just become sun damaged. It's a 1970s nylon, and yeah, it's just in horrendous condition. So amazingly, I managed to find the right fabric. It is absolutely the correct original fabric. It's reason that's amazing is because that fabric was a single model year only fabric. It was only the 1977 cars, the very first model year of the 343, and after that it changed. So the fact that this trimming company up in Manchester, I think, had a roll of this still on their shelves was some sort of amazing serendipity. As you can see on the screen, I have spent quite a lot of time and energy taking the seats apart and picking out all that old fabric, using those as templates to cut out new pattern pieces and sewing those into the rest of the seat fabric, the vinyl, etc. I also added in extra padding to make sure that it was the right sort of texture, and put in the sort of stitching stripes that go along the seats. And here is the finished results. The front seats here, and the rear bench. And I have to say, this job is probably the one that has made the most difference to this car, because the old interior looked so shabby. The car really did look like it should have belonged in a scrapyard a long time ago. It's really hard to show on camera this fabric because it changes colour so much. It's a I'm looking at it next to the camera and it's a dark chocolate brown, but on my phone you can see that it's not quite. It's kind of more caramelly coloured, but it isn't. It's dark brown. But in certain sunlight and certain angles, it can look lighter. It's a very confusing colour, but I've seen photos of other cars that look like this and they behave in the same way. It is simply the nature of the fabric. The first job of the restoration can be ticked off the list. Time now to tackle the second job, and so let's turn the clock back to a couple of weeks ago when I actually did it. The bonnet is, is very dead. It has lots and lots. It's had filler in it, and the filler's all cracked, and I think that's an ex-bonnet. It isn't actually the car's original bonnet either. The reason I know that is that you look inside, the paint starts to flake off, and it is actually a yellow bonnet originally. Also, it has the catch system for a later bonnet, for a later car. So the cars from, I think, 1978 onwards had a kind of a spring clip that slid in there. My other car has one. But the early cars like this have a bonnet stay, which kind of just stays in there. So I know it's not its original bonnet anyway, so I'm not that bothered. Onsloifying means I'm going to stick a blue bonnet on it, and therefore make it have a mismatched panel. Yes, I know it's not ideal, but it's better than that bonnet. And one day I will get the car properly painted, but I don't want that dead bonnet being the one being painted. So let's get all the ancillaries off the old bonnet. You can see that obviously the hinges aren't there, the rollers, none of the catches or anything, the squirters, all that needs to be put onto this and transferred onto it. And also I need to somehow figure out how to get the bonnet stay on and transfer that over. It's currently riveted on the old one, so we might have to do some riveting. So stay tuned. Bulldoggying them. One bonnetless Volvo. New bonnet, old bonnet. Okay, so all the ancillaries have been removed from the old bonnet, and I have drilled out the rivets that were holding the bonnet stay catch in place. So they have now been transferred over to the new one. Rollers, catch, the stay. I've riveted the stay kind of bracket in place there where it's supposed to be, and got the squirters in as well. So now it's time to get it on the car. Well, after about an hour of jiggery pokery, we finally got the bonnet to sit right. It was really fiddly, but it's on, it's blue, but it doesn't have a massive scab on it, and it sort of fits. So we'll chalk that a win for now. Oh, I don't like it.
Yeah, oh, look at that. Almost like a rock.
Hi, Bonnet. Oh, you're very rusty, aren't you? Don't like it. This is why we replaced the bonnet. Oh,
they're nice, those. You should keep them. Frame
goodness
them.
gracious! Look how thick that is. That filler. That is.
Yeah, that's bad.
That is some proper filler. That is like good 2 millimeters thick.
Body shops that.
Nice. Well, there we have it for this video. I hope you've enjoyed joining me for the first in this series of restoration videos on this car. Next video, I'm hoping to get cracking with some of the interior issues, so the electrical issues on the dashboard, the cracked trim, and also the rear bumper over there. So please do click on the subscribe button, which is, I think, up there, so that you can be kept up to date whenever I release a new update on this car, and in fact any of the other ones over there, and more. Thank you very much for watching. Have a great one. Take care. Bye.